Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the National Guard number 229 SSS. This is a surface mount automatic door bottom, and let's go over it now. First of all, the 229 is representative of that very fact that it's a surface mount style automatic door bottom. The S, the first S, stands for the fact that the insert material is silicone. Okay, very soft yet durable material that's used for sealing the bottom when it drops. The next two S's stand for stainless steel. This item, this white film that you see here, this white coloring, is just a peel away protective film covering a stainless steel exterior trim plate in a satin finish. Okay. Where you would use a stainless steel model would be anywhere that you expect to have an exterior application, maybe a coastal environment. Maybe I've sold these to transit authorities where they have stainless steel doors that are in exterior applications that, you know, any other door is going to fail. A typical steel door is going to begin to rust after just 2 or 3 years, so they opt for items that are going to, you know, last longer from rust, that sort of situation. So this, I've sold this in that sort of application as well. So it's surface mounted. There are different types of automatic door bottoms in terms of how they mount. This is the type that mounts to the face of the door versus those that are mortised or a semi-recess sort of mount. This is specifically a surface mount. There is a link below this video to the product brochure, and reviewing that shows this as it relates to its sister products so that you can determine if this model is appropriate for your application. And you can see how this model is also available in a brass sort of finish as well, the housing anyway. There is below this video also a list of the extended dimensional properties in the image below, which you can see. Let's go over that now. So from that image, you can see that the overall height of the item is 2.5 inch to the, it's that dimension from the housing. So from the top of the housing down to the bottom, this is coming in. It's going to be hard to show it to you because of the return here. We'll just kind of eyeball it there. 2.5 inch, which is the dimension from the top of the stainless face down to the bottom. You can see that it's got a projection of 5/8 of an inch. Less important of a dimension, but nonetheless. Here we go. Sorry. There we go. 5/8 of an inch. Yep, spot on. This model is really a joy almost to review because it gives you an intimate view as to the inner workings of how an automatic door bottom operates, and we're going to go over that in a moment. As you can also see before we move forward, you can get this in a neoprene synthetic rubber as well. Okay, so you know, I can't make I would argue that neoprene would be my choice. In my experience, it's a bit more durable product, especially in terms of long, you know, use applications. I find that it deteriorates not as quickly, that its wear is not as quick as with other products, and in this case obviously silicone. So you can also see from that image that you've got a 1 inch maximum drop. So if your door has an undercut of, you know, a typical undercut of about 3/4 inch, this is going to be perfect. You can expect that it will be able to handle dropping up to 1 inch, anywhere from basically 0 to 1 inch, obviously. Available in different lengths, 3 foot, 4 foot, and 5 foot in the website. Yes, it's not uncommon to have a 5 foot long automatic door bottom. You can also buy end caps available for this, and there's a link below this video in the item to where you would select the end caps, because you can see in a surface mount sort of application like this, you'll see the exposed ends. And end caps, while that's typical and common to have it this way, end caps are not included specifically with this, but can be ordered. Okay, now moving forward to the link to the installation instructions, which are below this. Let's go over that now. So, first of all, before we jump into it, I want to say this. When you're ordering this item, it is going to be extremely uncommon that you would need the actual lengths that are listed in the website, 36, 48, 60 inch. That's not going to be typical that you would need those exact lengths. You are most likely going to need a specific length, 35 and or 34 and 5/8, 34 and 7/8, something in this range. Because a surface mount model is mounted on the push side of the door. You would never install this on the pull side because it must be mounted on the push side. And that's a result of how this operates, which I'll make clear when we go through the installation instructions. So when ordering the item, you probably, since you're mounting it on the push side at the bottom of the door, you want to measure the distance. Standing on the push side of the door with the door closed, you'll want to measure the distance between the two door stops and then deduct about 1/8 of an inch, and that would give you a net length. And for reasons that will become obvious in a few moments, when you order at a specific length, you won't have to be involved in actually trimming this down to size in the field. If you've got any experience trying to drill or cut stainless steel, you know that that's easier said than done. So your preferred method of ordering this is to get the actual size that you need and then indicate that in the comment field below the indicate it in the comment field where you're adding to cart, telling us the specific size. It could be it could be a situation where you don't have the exact size, maybe the job site's too far away, etc. But it's my opinion that taking time to measure the sizes that you need is, in the long run, the better way to go. You don't take the risk of damaging the item because there are moving parts here. You don't take the risk of cutting it wrong. The factory absorbs all of that risk. They're cutting all the components to length anyway, so might as well just give them the exact length. 36 to them is the same as 34 and 13/16. Doesn't really matter. Okay, now, going to the installation instructions. Step 1, if nylon brush gasket, slide the brush clear when cutting the case and drop bar. This is obviously not that sort of model. Now, for single doors, cut the door bottom 1/8 of an inch shorter than the distance between the stops on the frame. That's what we just said. So, because this unit is mounted on the push side, standing on the push side of the door with the door closed, measure the distance between the stops to take 1/8 of an inch off. That's the order size, okay? For pairs of doors, cut 1/16 of an inch shorter than the distance between the stop on frame and the meeting edge of the door. So in the instance where you've got a pair of doors, if it was me, you're going to put them on both doors. If it was me, I would measure the distance between the stops. Okay, I would divide that, or I would deduct 1/8 for my margin. I would then deduct the distance between the two doors, which is typically 1/8 of an inch, and I would divide that by 2. Is how I would go about doing that. That's what's left over. Do not cut until drop bar is extended in down position. So at this point, I want to show you the inner workings of this so that we can start to define the terms. So, the principle of automatic door bottoms, and I'm going to say that automatic door bottoms are elegant solutions. I'm going to say the word elegant several times. They're elegant solutions because of their operation. So, the way that an automatic door bottom works, regardless of it being surface mount, mortise, or semi-mortise, is that there is the I'll call it a plunger. And it's this gizmo that sticks out of the edge of the unit. And forgive the fact that the silicone sticks out long. You're going to trim that after installation, so just ignore that. This is the plunger, and it's got a slot in it because you can thread that plunger in and out. Now, the way that the operation works is when you have this installed, obviously on the push side of the door, the plunger here is installed only on the hinge side of the door. When the door is open, the plunger is in its natural state, which is extended. However, if you imagine that when the door closes, with the plunger being on the hinge side of the door, as the door gets very near to being closed, this will come in contact with the stop of the frame. When this comes in contact with the stop of the frame and you continue to push the door closed, this plunger has nowhere to go except in. It's that action of this going in, and I'm going to use my finger to depress it, that makes the bottom drop. Now, it's normal that it drops like this, and I'm going to explain why it's normal that it drops like this in a moment. Okay? But when you depress that plunger, the bottom drops. Okay? Just like that. Now, what they're saying is, when you cut this down in the field, you must have the drop bar, which is this item that drops, this long, and that's aluminum. This is the drop bar that I'm tapping on with my finger. You must have it in the extended position before you cut it. Okay? So you're going to need to get it held in place like this. However, National Guard provides a provision for you holding it in place, and I'll talk about that in seconds. Now, the reason you have to have the drop bar extended is that the action of the drop bar is the where it is in relationship to the housing changes. Think of it more as it drops, it goes like this. Okay? So that when the unit is extended or dropped, you need to have the seal in the proper location. If you were to cut this when it's retracted, and then when you extended it, it wouldn't be exactly where it needs to be because of the action. It drops down, in a angled fashion. Now, in the package, there are, amongst other things, will be two nails. There's two of them there. All that those nails are used for is for helping you cut the item. I'm going to get this pulled down so that you can see it. See what I'm about to say. Okay, right. My pinky that's here, you can see a little hole that's just a couple of inches away. And now it's gone, and now you see it. It's into that hole, there's the back side of the hole, that you insert the nail. And then there's one on the other end of it as well. You can see it right there. Okay? When you insert the nail through those holes, it'll hold it in the extended or the dropped position, and then you can cut the entire unit. That's the reasoning for that. And then, of course, the next sentence in that is insert the two nails provided into the small holes on the side of the drop bar to keep it extended when you're cutting it. Maximum cut on door bottoms, 36-inch and longer equal 4-inch. Shorter than 36-inch should not be field trimmed. Let's talk about that. First of all, if you have any door that's smaller than 36-inch, order the 36-inch and then indicate in the comment field what actual length you need the unit to come out at. The reasoning is this, and this clarification will require a description of how this unit works. When you depress this plunger, there is a series of linkage and connections inside of here that if you get too close to where the internal workings of the unit are, you're going to destroy those, and then the unit will no longer work, obviously. There's a flat spring over here. There's a guide bar that's here. You can't get close to these things, otherwise you're going to destroy its operation. They're saying you've got 4-inch of area to cut the unit. So you could take a 3-footer and get it down to work on a 2'8" door. Okay, that's no problem. It goes to serve as obvious that you only cut the end of the unit opposite the plunger. The plunger is always the hinge side, because this must come in contact with the stop. So you would never cut the end with the plunger. Only the end that's on the lock side, okay, or in a pair of doors in the center. That's the only end that you cut. Now, let's talk about the operation of this. This unit, like I said earlier, this unit is a great example of how to see how these work. So the plunger is, and I'll expose a bit of it here, is a rod, and it's threaded on the end. Okay, and there's a captive nut that's there to a spring. Okay. Now, the way that these work, forgive me, there you go. The plunger I can turn in and out. I can thread that in and out of the unit. Okay. So the more that I turn this clockwise, it will draw the plunger back into the housing. You can see that I've got it significantly further in. The amount of projection of the plunger is directly related to the amount of drop. Okay. So when you get this installed, you'll turn your plunger in significantly. Turn it not necessarily flush, but you know, 1/8 of an inch or 3/16. And then as you have it installed, you start to test the operation, meaning that you watch the drop. You turn it counterclockwise to back it out so that you can effect a greater drop. And you get it to a point where the unit makes a seal on the floor. Now, the first thing that makes this elegant is the fact that all the drop bar is doing with the inserted seal material is making contact with the floor. It's not being dragged across a floor that might be high gloss wood, it might be concrete, whatever the case might be. You're not dragging this like a door sweep. You're only pushing down and making contact. That feature makes it extremely elegant in the sense that you're not going to prematurely wear this material. You can expect a very long lifespan out of this material. And I know door bottoms that have been installed for several years and work like the day they were put in. That feature leads to the fact that an automatic door bottom always has its seal material retracted up into its housing when the door is open. Okay? That allows a situation whereby you might have a door where you've got a flooring condition that changes, like you get the door out to 80 degrees and it starts to hit the bottom of, the door hits the floor. That's not ideal at all. And you might have, a little bit larger than standard gap underneath the door when it's in the closed position. This sort of situation allows it to be extremely effective, allowing you to deal with the condition of there being an uneven floor and still sealing the bottom of the door. Now, talking about an uneven floor, the way that these work is when I depress the plunger, mimicking the action of the door closing, it drops, and I'm going to push the plunger in, it drops down, more like a guillotine fashion. The end over here doesn't drop. So this item literally comes like this. But what actually happens is when you depress this, my thumb over here is going to act as the floor. So it'll drop. But when I restrict, my thumb over here, but when the door bottom comes in contact with the floor, the other end, so I've got it depressed, the other end, it's difficult to do like this. When it's dropping, this end over here that is dropped, and it of course would never look like this, will come in contact with the floor. It then is prevented from dropping even further, and when I restrict it, the other end over here then comes down. So I'm using my hand here to pretend that the leading edge of the door bottom has struck the floor. Then what happens over here is it just settles down like this, because the drop bar will just contour itself down to whatever the surface is. So the fact that you could have an uneven floor condition in both instances, when the door is open and when the door is closed, your sill could be, not level. Your door may not be plumb. So with this automatic door bottom, while it can't work with a wavy floor condition, obviously, it will contour itself down to whatever sort of sill condition you have. If it's an exterior door, there's a lot of situations where in the winter when, the water that's in there freezes, concrete rises a little bit, moves like this. Automatic door bottoms take that completely in stride and work very well. So it's more like a guillotine. It drops, and then the opposite end will be forced down because you've limited this by hitting the ground, and then it drops like this. Any questions on that, feel free to reach out to us. Step 3 doesn't apply, but it says if you've got a nylon brush gasket, because you can get these with different seal material, even with bristles, you'll want to slide those out and cut them with end cutters, because cutting the bristle, which is held in by a steel holder, is going to cause problems when you're cutting all that. You want to cut that by hand. Slide your seal material out and snip it. Step 4, do not trim excess gasket from a adjusting rod end, as a bar is designed to shift slightly toward the lock edge of door when it's activated. Number 4 serves to prove what I was saying earlier about how you cut this. So they're saying they're called, this is an adjusting rod, not a plunger. Don't trim this end, because what happens is, like I said earlier, when it drops, it does this. So while that's excessive, you would trim it a little bit because you couldn't bunch that all into your door. Don't trim it excessively. It needs to hang out a little bit, because when the door is in the closed position, it's no longer going to be in the same position. It'll have shifted a little bit. Step 5, with door closed, position on push side of door with adjusting rod towards the hinge edge. Align bottom of case flush with bottom of door. Allow 1/16 of an inch clearance at each end and mark the screw holes. So what they're saying is you're going to install this when the door is hung. Once you've got it cut to length, you're going to flush align the bottom of the case, okay, which is going to be the stainless steel portion here with the bottom of the door. You're going to mark your screw holes. These are the screw holes, 1, 2, and 3, and your 4-foot and 5-footer will have probably additional holes. Mark your holes, pull it off, use a center punch, pre-drill your holes, which is step 6. Pre-drill 9/64 of an inch pilot holes. For the 221 top flange screws, drill pilot holes 5/64. So that doesn't apply to this, because the 221 is a model that's on a link to the product brochure. It's a different model, but you would simply pre-drill different size pilot holes. Moving on to step 7, install with the screws provided. Tighten center mounting screw snug first, and then tighten the outside mounting screws. Don't over tighten, because you don't want to crush the holder or the outside plate against the door, hampering the smooth operation of the drop bar. Step 8, set adjusting rod for proper seal. We talked about that earlier with how far you've got it drawn in or out, the plunger or the adjusting rod. Turn it leave it hang out about 3/16 of an inch. You don't want to install it and have that drop bar, coming down too aggressively initially. You want the seal to only drop and press slightly against the sill. If you've got it pushed down too far, you can imagine that the linkage and the springs that are inside of here, okay, are going to become damaged, and the drop bar will become damaged if you've got it pushed down so far that the door must open a significant portion before the tension is released from those inner working parts to retract the housing back up. You don't want the door to open 4 inches and you're dragging the entire assembly across the floor. That would damage it and destroy it. So be very conservative. Just pressing down, no more than that. Step 8 was set the adjusting rod for proper seal. To reduce the drop, turn the adjusting rod clockwise. To increase the drop, turn it counterclockwise or left. Once hinge end of drop bar makes solid contact, other end will drop. We demonstrated that earlier. On wooden frames, install the strike plate on the door jamb where the adjusting rod or plunger makes contact. In your screw package, you're going to get the screws that were mentioned earlier where you're pre-drilling and attaching. The strike plate is just this piece of aluminum with a hole in it, and there is a smaller screw included right there. What happens is when the adjusting plunger or the adjusting rod is making contact with a wooden frame, if that's what it is, every time the door closes, you'll create a divot in that wood frame over time. Steel frame, no. So you will take the one little screw and the piece of square or rectangular aluminum and attach it to the wooden frame, to the stop, so that when the adjusting rod's constantly hitting it and pushing against it, it's not going to damage it. There are instructions to rehand this unit. Rehanding the unit should not be done. We've got a requirement where you have to tell us the hand of the unit before or at the time of ordering it, and that's so that it arrives to you correctly. You don't want to have to unhand or to rehand, disassemble the unit at all. And if you need to go through those steps, I won't beleaguer them here. Feel free to reach out and we can walk through that together. I'm a fan of it showing up the proper hand and the proper length, so that the installation aspect is reduced to its minimum. The fact, like I've said before, the factory's assembling these, cutting these to length and assembling them to begin with. Just supply them the proper information and then your work is reduced. So what makes this, again, an elegant solution is the fact that this can be expected to last a very long time because the seal is just making contact. It's also retracted up when the door is open as a result of that, allowing it to be a very long-lasting sort of installation. They're known to be extremely effective at not only retarding the transmission of temperature of the elements, but a lot of people in amateur sound studios will use automatic door bottoms as well because they're effective. And you could have in an amateur sound studio, it's known to have unusual flooring conditions, door conditions, sill conditions, where an automatic door bottom is required. Because you might have very thick carpeting on the floor. Now, regarding a sound studio sort of application, or any sort of application that's residential as well, if I've had 10,000 compliments on how well these sorts of items work, I've had one complaint, and that only complaint really has been, is that when the door opens, you can hear the drop bar retract back up or snap into the housing. You can hear that. To me, it's not an issue at all. I suppose the only reason I mention it is because I've heard that said before, and it's when that snaps back up, it makes contact. You can see it making contact here, and there's nothing deadening that. Okay, there are different types of models that have a sound deadening strip installed. They're inherently different than this. But the truth of the matter is a stainless steel model like this is probably going to be used in applications where it's commonly used. Balcony doors, condo buildings, coastal Florida. Okay, bedroom to balcony. Those doors are opened often when the condos are being used. It can be that they are not open for 6 months at a time as well. So the stainless steel helps resolve that sort of issue very well with a stainless steel exterior. Now, National Guard is a full-line manufacturer of all things automatic door bottom related, but not only automatic door bottoms, the common material, commercial thresholds, perimeter gasketing, weather stripping, material made of aluminum base, stainless steel, architectural bronze, and they are, I'm partial to National Guard because in my opinion they're a leader in the world of weather stripping. Excellent customer service, excellent technical support, very good quality products, excellent shipping lead times, and that really says it all. There's a link below this video also to the catalog page where you can review the entire National Guard catalog. And if you're if you make a living in the installation of door hardware and weather stripping, absolutely familiarize yourself with National Guard because of their very extensive yet focused product offering in the world of weather stripping. Any questions on the National Guard 229 SSS automatic stainless steel door bottom or any other National Guard product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.